Hey everybody, it's Dalton. I wanted to do a short video on upsizing the Ned Rig. Yeah, Ned Rig's been around for a few years. It was actually around before it was called the Ned Rig. Roland Martin talks about using something very similar to it over 20 years ago. So it's been around a while, but it's become very popular, you know, being called the Ned Rig. A guy named Ned Cady came up with it. He's a Midwestern finesse bass fisherman. They're known for light line fishing, and this is a very good finesse technique. As far as the Ned Rig, you know, I tend to not want to throw it, but there's times I just have to. You know, there could be a day where I'm just not getting good bites and I've got to throw it. So typically your Ned Rig is going to look like this. This is just a small little shroom head, 1/10 ounce. What I do is I just take a yum dinger or a Senko or whatever soft stick bait, and I'll cut it and put it on there. I don't buy the special ones anymore. I just cut these and it works just fine. And this is the typical size that we use. Another size that I use works really well, particularly if I'm fishing for crappie, is I'll even downsize it even more. If you look at this one, you know, it's quite a bit smaller than the standard Ned Rig, and I just take a little ball head jig, maybe a 3/16 ounce. I take a little piece of that stick worm, I put it on there, and I drag this thing and I hop it around. You know, this does catch crappie really well, and it also gets a lot of bass bites. But the one thing about the Ned Rig, this may not be your experience, but it's definitely mine, catches a lot of small fish. From time to time it'll catch some bigger ones, but it catches a lot more small ones. So what about upgrading it or upsizing it? JT Kinney, who's one of my favorite bass fishermen, he lives in Florida, he came up with the Magnum Ned Head. This is made by Nichols Lures. I'll have the link down there for you to go check it out. Now you can buy these in two different ways. You can get it with or without a weed guard. Comes in 3 different weight sizes. 3/16 ounce, I'll typically throw that on a spinning rod, and it also has a 5/16 and a 7/16, and both of those I throw on a bait caster. The bait of choice that I use, I just buy packs of these yum dingers, and these are 6-inch. They're a little bit bigger as far as they're fatter, they're a little heavier, and what I do is I just take them like this and I cut them in half. I put them on one of these Nichols lures, and that's what it looks like. And the thing about the weed guard that's kind of nice, it's not a heavy weed guard, so you don't want to throw it in too heavy of stuff, but it's really good for like light vegetation, throwing around some rocks, maybe some gravel, hard bottoms, that kind of stuff. One of my favorite ways, I'll talk about in just a second, is throwing around docks. So if you look at the size difference of these Ned Rigs, you know, from the smaller one that's like this to the standard size, which is like this is not too big, but it is a bigger profile, and it might get a bigger bite. Now I've already got this tied onto a rod. I tied it on earlier. I'm going to be going out in a couple of days, and I want to pitch and flip some docks. This, you know, when you get the 5/16 and the 7/16, really good for pitching and flipping, and you can use heavier line. I've got it rigged up on a 7.3 medium heavy action rod with a fast tip. It's got a soft tip, which, you know, this is a much better wire than the standard Ned Rig, but you can still bend it out, so that soft tip helps a lot. I'm using a 6:8 gear ratio bait casting reel, and I'm throwing it on 15-pound test fluorocarbon, which is Suffix or Seagar Invisix, which is one of my favorite fluorocarbons. So if you haven't tried this out, say you're in a windy lake and you're fishing, you know, not super high wind, but you're fishing wind, you can put the 7/16 ounce on there and it's going to do you good. If you're fishing deeper for bass, 20, 30, 40, 50 feet, you don't have to wait so long for this one to get down there. You can use the Magnum Ned Head and it'll get down there in plenty of time. Works great in the wind, works really good around docks, pitching and flipping docks. You can cast it, you can work it deep. There's so many things you can do with it. If you haven't given it a try, give these jig heads a try. I believe it'll work for you. Well, thanks for tuning in, everybody. You know, we're coming into we're in that pre-spawn period. We're coming into that spawn where You know, a lot of bass are going to be working their way up shallow. There's going to be a lot of fornicating going on in the water because they're getting ready to have babies. I think this is a bait that if you can find some bass beds and you work this slowly through it, you're probably going to get bit. I appreciate you tuning in. Have a great day. I'll talk to you soon.